Hey YouTube, this is We All Juggle Knives giving you an overview and comparison between two outwardly similar knives, the Cold Steel Black Talon II and the Spyderco Civilian. And here's a close-up of the blade of the Spyderco Civilian, in case you don't have one or haven't seen one. This is what we're talking about. And the upstart contender, the Black Talon II, recently released by Cold Steel. The usable blade length on both of these is virtually identical, around 4 inches for both. Perhaps you can see that better from this angle. So you see that, right? Basically around 4 inches for both, yeah, so that's kind of tied neck and neck in comparison. But notice the Cold Steel is wider. It is wider. It is a different story with the handles, however. Right, with the Cold Steel having a noticeably longer handle. Right, so if you have very large hands, that might be the deciding factor. All right, and let's compare the serration patterns. You see the Spyderco, it has scallops and subtips. And the Cold Steel also has basically scallops and subtips, but on the Cold Steel there are more subtips. And the subtips are kind of less broad, more just tips, whereas on the Spyderco, it's more like an edge. So which serration pattern do I prefer? Honestly, I do prefer the Spyderco serration pattern. I have a lot of experience with them on other Spydercos. Now, the Cold Steel works well. I mean, the Cold Steel serration pattern works very well, okay, but if you're forcing me to choose, I guess I would give this an A, and I would give this an A+. Okay, so 1 point for the Spyderco, but now, when we talk about the locks, I have to go with the Cold Steel, because this Spyderco is just a normal lockback lock, alright, and Cold Steel has the triad lock, which has been proven, been demonstrated to just be a mechanically extremely strong lock. So yeah, I gotta give the decisive edge in locks to the Cold Steel. And while we're discussing the locks, the question arises, how important really is the strength of the lock on a knife like this? Should you base your decision on the triad lock? It's an interesting philosophical question, my friends. What are the chances that a lot of force is going to be applied to the spine of your folder? If you use the knife correctly, I don't think that would really be too likely. So to me, the locks are not a huge factor. But I guess what I'm saying, it's all in how you use it and what your reaction time and precision is like. It just comes down to the individual skills of the user. Alright, and on with the comparison. Well, the pocket clips. Alright, this is tip up, right side or left side. Alright, so that's a 2-position pocket clip. Now this is tip down or tip up, right, but only on one side. As far as the opening, well, this has the thumb plate, fairly easy to open. This has a Spyderco opening hole. It's a smaller opening hole than their newer stuff, right? But this opens very smoothly. The triad lock does give you a little resistance, so I'd say this opens more smoothly. But this gives you the advantage that this can be waved open, meaning you can snag it as you pull it out of your pocket and it will automatically open. All right, so many people consider the wave function very desirable in a tactical folder. Now, as far as the steels, the VG10 versus the CTS Carpenter steel, there's so many people that are used to VG10 from the Spyderco Delica and the Spyderco Endura that I could see, why they would keep using it, because it's developed a good following. But, for knives that are meant to be used against soft targets, quote unquote, the steel isn't going to matter that much either way. So basically, it's not really going to come down to the steel, but from a knife marketing perspective, the newer Carpenter steel would be favored by most people. Okay, so summary and final thoughts. I prefer the serration pattern on the Spyderco, but I prefer the triad lock and the wave opener on the Black Talon II. I think the handle of the Black Talon II, both the contour and the extra size of it, does give you a little bit better of a grip. I also think the Black Talon II has more strength around this part of the blade, because look how thick it is around here compared to how thin that gets right there. You know, Spyderco includes a warning not to use this as a utility knife. But my overall feeling is this: you're never going to die because you chose one of these over the other. You know, it's not going to come down to these small differences. It's going to come down to the individual's fighting skills. I mean, you want speed, reaction time, hand-eye coordination, precision, footwork, timing. Those are the skills of a fighter, whether you're talking about Muay Thai or some kind of knife fight. And I'll take those skills and either knife rather than no skills and trying to have like the knife do your fighting. You have to do the fighting, not the knife. And that's why I have both of these. You know, the S-curve, in the future, we might start to think of the S-curve as the way we think of like a buoy tip design now. You know, just something that's ubiquitous that every manufacturer has, okay? So it might be new now, but we might see more S-curves in the future, and that's a good thing. Right, so if you're a person that hates cold steel and you love Spyderco, then go ahead and get the Civilian. If you're the opposite, if you don't like Spyderco, you love cold steel, go ahead. Basically, either one that you're comfortable with, if you do your part, it will do its part. Alright, I hope this gave you some food for thought. This has been We All Juggle Knives. I'm out.